Hello, all. We are going to finish the book Third Grade Angels today, reading chapters 15, 16, and 17. So, this is chapter 15. It's called The Winner. Suds! Suds! I heard a voice calling me, a far, far away voice. Suds! Suds! Suddenly, the voice was shocking, like a smashed window. Suds! I was being yanked out of warm darkness. I was sitting on the edge of my bed. My mother was yelling at me. What are you doing? Why aren't you ready for school? Your bus is coming in 5 minutes. I'm not going, I said. I crawled back under the blanket. Are you sick? I heard her say. She put her hand on my forehead. No, I said, and I burrowed into the pillow. She yanked the cover off. Then get ready for school. No. No? She said it again like she couldn't figure out what the word meant. No? Pray tell why not? I lost. What? It's Halo Day. I lost. I'm not going in. How do you know you lost? Your teacher hasn't even announced the winner yet. I just know. Darren Tapp won. He's better than me. I'm not going in. What happened next was pretty embarrassing. My mother grabbed my clothes, including my underwear, dumped them on my head, and said, "You have 60 seconds to get dressed." I never made it to the bus. My mother had to drive me there. When I walked into class, everyone looked up. A room full of eyes was staring at me. Mrs. Sims smiled. "Welcome, George," she said. "You're just in time," and she was holding the first halo. I took my seat and got the shock of my life. Judy Billings turned around and smiled at me and whispered, "You're gonna win." I had a flash fantasy. I heard Mrs. Sims call my name. I saw Judy Billings put the halo on my head like a crown. And then she gave me a smile and whispered in my ear, "Congratulations, Suds." And then she kissed me. But then I heard my mother's voice from the ride to school. "If you lose, be a good loser. It's easy to be a good winner. Any old slob can do that." I knew the fantasy wasn't going to come true. I knew the winner wasn't going to be me. I was right. I knew the winner would be Darren Tapp. I was wrong. "Ladies and gentlemen," said Mrs. Sims in her special "This is a Big Deal" voice, "the first halo of the year goes to Constantina Pappas." And this is chapter 16, Outside Inside. I think I was a bad loser. I was talking to my mother after school. I wasn't in the tub because I wasn't stressed out. All the nervousness was gone. I felt as limp as a noodle. "How so?" said my mom. "Didn't you congratulate Constantina?" I did, I told her. "When Mrs. Sims said her name, I clapped along with everybody else, and when Mrs. Sims put the halo on her head, I clapped again." "Sounds to me like you did pretty good," said my mother. But then something worse happened. What was that? In the playground after lunch, kids were going up and saying, "Way to go, Constantina," and stuff like that, and I was watching a tree fall out in our backyard. The tree in our backyard, sorry. One leaf was orange and red. Fall's coming. "And," said my mother. And then Constantina was coming towards me, and she had a funny look on her face. Funny how? "I don't know," I said, kind of like she did something wrong. And then she took off her halo and she said, "I think there was a mistake. I think this is yours." She held out the halo to me, and I took it, and I was crying. Mom pulled me close to her. "Tell me." I looked at the red leaf and I took a shaky breath. "I couldn't help it, Mom. I shouldn't have took it, but I did. I worked so hard for it, and I believed her. It was a mistake. It really was mine." I looked up. I think my mother was looking at the red leaf too. Finally, she said, "And then?" And then, I don't know. I looked at Constantina's face, and for some reason, I just gave the halo back to her and I walked away. I might have said, "Congratulations, Constantina," but I'm not sure. She pulled my ear. "You gave it back to her. It sounds like, to me, you're a good loser." But that's outside, Mom. Inside, I feel like I was a really bad loser, maybe the baddest loser there ever was. Because I wanted to keep it. I wanted to put it on my head, and everybody would come up to me and say, "Congratulations, son." Mom, I was only good on the outside. I was crying again. Now both of my mother's arms were around me, and that's when we heard the doorbell ring. I opened the door. It was Mrs. Sims. I'll show you this picture before I start chapter 17, surprise. I almost fell over. "Hi, Mrs. Morton," she said, a big smile on her face. "Hi, Suds." I almost fell over. "You called me Suds?" She laughed. "Well, I'm in your territory now. Suds it is." My mother invited her in. We sat in the living room. My mom offered her tea or coffee or juice, but she said no thank you. The smile didn't go away, but it changed. She took a deep breath. She spoke to my mother. "I felt like I should stop by because," and now she spoke to me, "I could see how the events of the day were affecting Suds." Who was she talking about? "Did your son tell you that the first halo went to Constantina Pappas?" she said. "Yes, he did," said my mother, "as soon as he got home from school." Mrs. Sims reached over and gave me a knee pat as if I did something great. "Good," she said, "and I was happy to see you join the others in congratulating Constantina. I know how badly you wanted that halo, Suds. I know how hard you tried." I didn't know what to say, and I still didn't know what she was doing in my house. Now she was looking at me like I was the only person in the world. "Suds, you are an angel. You'll get your halo soon enough." I got the feeling she could see inside me. "You were disappointed you didn't get it this morning, weren't you?" "A little," I said. "But not really surprised?" "Not really." "Why not?" "I thought Darren Tapp would get it." "Oh, Darren Tapp, yes." She looked at my mother. "Another boss angel." "And the Blurts," I said. Her eyes went wide. "The Blurts?" "The first couple days of school," I said. I kept blurting out stuff without raising my hand. I guess that sunk me. Mrs. Sims and my mother broke out laughing. I didn't know what was so funny. When Mrs. Sims stopped laughing, she said, "So you must have been really surprised that Constantina Pappas got it." I nodded. "Because you didn't even think that she was very interested, did you? You didn't think she was even trying." She poked my knee. "Did you?" "No," I said. "Well, guess what?" she said. "What?" "You were right. She had no interest in getting the halo. Not at all. She wasn't even trying." "Really?" I said. This was getting more and more confusing. She nodded. "Really? And a funny thing happened. In all my years of doing angel halos, it's never happened before." She stopped talking and just stared at me. After a while, it occurred to me that I was supposed to ask what happened. So I did. "What happened?" "Remember the day you put a note on my desk telling me how you saved the runaway dog in the street?" "Yes." "Well, somebody else left a note on my desk." "I know," I said. "Darren Tapp." She stared at me, at my mother. She blinked. She shook her head. "No, not Darren Tapp. The note was from Constantina Pappas." I just stared at her. She leaned in towards me. "Would you like to know what Constantina's note said?" "Okay." "Her note told me the same thing that yours did." I was more confused than ever. "What?" I said. She told me she was up the street that day and she saw that whole thing. She saw how you ran into the street and stopped that little dog from being hit by the car. She said it was such a wonderful thing you did that she thought that I ought to know. She wanted me to know that you were an angel even after school. Oh, oh, I heard my mother say. I looked at her. Her eyes were all glittery. And that's why I gave the first halo to Constantina Papas, said Mrs. Sims. Because yes, she was trying to get the halo. Not for herself, but, she smiled, for somebody else. My mom gave a little whistle. She was fanning her face with her hand. Mrs. Sims stood up. Well, gotta go. Speaking of dogs, it's way past Mr. Moto's dinner time. At the door, Mrs. Sims turned and gave my mother a hug, and then she hugged me. The drawer was shut when suddenly I thought of something. I pulled open the door. She was almost to the sidewalk. I called, Mrs. Sims! My mom says you have spies. Joey Peterson says you don't. Who's right? Behind me, my mother was laughing so hard, I thought she might get sick. So was Mrs. Sims. She was wobbling. She hardly made it to her car. I never got an answer. And that's the end of the book. So you can tell me what you think. And if you really liked this book, like I said in the beginning of our read aloud, there's another book called Fourth Grade Rats that actually was written before this. And it gives you a little more insight into George or Suds and Joey Peterson's friendship and their life. Hope you enjoyed it.